I want you to visualize a moment that's probably going to feel a little too relatable.
Oh boy, I feel like I know where this is going.
You probably do. So you're sitting at your computer, right?
Yeah.
You're drafting email, or maybe you're actually sitting across a table from a potential client.
Or a boss, yeah.
Exactly, or your boss. And you are about to name your price.
The dreaded moment.
Right. This could be for like a freelance service or a salary negotiation, maybe a major project proposal, consulting fees, literally whatever it is.
Right.
And you know what your work is worth. You've known it for a while. You've done the market research. You've looked at your peers, and you have this exact number clearly in your head.
It's a completely fair number.
It's a fair number. It's an accurate number.
Yeah.
But right before you speak or right before your finger hits send on that email, you hesitate.
Yep. Every time.
You look at the number, your stomach does this little flip, and you lower it. You literally backspace. You delete the digits, and you type in a smaller number.
It's such a visceral moment, isn't it? You can almost feel the physical resistance in your own hands.
You really can. And why do we do this?
Well, the interesting thing is, in that exact second, right after we hit backspace, we usually spin a very, very convincing story to ourselves.
Oh, totally. We rationalize it instantly.
Exactly.
We say things like, I'm just reading the room, or I'm just being reasonable.
Or I'm being competitive.
Right. We tell ourselves we're being fair, or that we're being really clever and strategic because, you know, this slightly lower price guarantees we keep the client.
It doesn't ruffle any feathers.
Yeah, exactly. We frame it as a calculated, purely rational business decision. But today, we're pulling from a deep stack of research, specifically revolving around a framework by Maria Fuentes.
Which is fascinating, by the way.
It really is. And this framework shatters that illusion completely. So today, we are taking a deep dive into the hidden, psychological, and honestly economic costs of undercharging.
Because we aren't just talking about leaving a few dollars on the table here.
No, not at all. We are looking at this wild intersection of economics, history, and hard neuroscience.
And that intersection is where this gets so compelling. The central premise we're unpacking today is that, well, when you lower that price, you aren't actually responding to the market at all.
Wait, you're not?
No, you are responding to your own internal wiring. When your finger hits that backspace key, you're interacting with a neurological loop that was likely coded decades ago.
That is wild.
Yeah, and we are going to explore why all the standard, aggressive business advice completely fails to fix it.
Oh, I can't wait for that part.
And we'll look at the actual biology behind why our brains price our worth based on our past experiences of safety rather than our present reality.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the very first concept we need to tackle is this idea that when you lower your price, it has absolutely nothing to do with market demands.
Right.
You do it because typing the higher figure feels like a literal risk, like it feels like stepping out onto a ledge.
Right. And that feeling of risk, that like localized anxiety right in your chest, is the core of the issue.
Yeah.
The framework we're looking at introduces this concept called the quiet standing tax.
The quiet standing tax. I like that phrasing.
It's so accurate because when you consistently lower your price, the distance between what you actually charge and what you are genuinely worth becomes a tax.
But it's not a tax collected by the government, obviously.
No. It's a tax you're levying on yourself.
Yeah?
Quietly, day after day, invoice after invoice.
Wow.
And it becomes this invisible drain on everything you do, not just your bank account, but, your energy and your creative output too.
And the typical advice we get for this, especially in this era of like hustle culture and social media, business gurus, it's always so aggressive and simplistic.
Oh, totally.
It's always, just raise your rates or know your value and hold the line.
Stop being afraid.
Right. Demand what you're worth. And it just feels so exhausting.
Oh, and it almost universally fails.
Why does it fail, though? It sounds like good advice on paper.
Because it's advice that treats the symptom as if we're the actual disease. Telling someone who is caught in this psychological loop to just raise their rates is, well, it's like telling someone with a broken leg to just run faster.
Oh, man, that's a great analogy.
It assumes that the number on the invoice is the problem. But the number was never the problem.
Right.
The inability to type the larger number, the physical hesitation, is just the outward behavioral expression of a much deeper internal mechanism.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
Isn't pricing just a rational response to supply and demand? I mean, let's look at basic economics. If I charge less, I get more clients.
There you have the theory.
I undercut my competition. It's like buying the generic brand of cereal at the grocery store instead of the premium brand.
Sure. Yeah.
It's cheaper, it gets the exact same job done, it tastes basically the same. It just makes economic sense to price competitively to capture market share, doesn't it?
It sounds totally logical.
Right. So why are we psychoanalyzing what is essentially just a basic market strategy?
Because that is exactly the rationalization your brain wants you to use. It wants you to think it's just math.
Okay, so how is it not just math?
Let's stress test that economic theory for a moment. If this behavior were purely about supply and demand, if it were just a rational market strategy, then what should happen when your calendar is completely full?
Well, I guess my prices should go up.
Right. What should happen when your demand is through the roof, you're turning people away, and the supply of your time is at absolute zero?
Logically, yeah, prices increase. If demand exceeds supply, the price goes up. That's literally economics 101.
Exactly. Your prices should naturally adjust upward without any emotional friction whatsoever. It should just be a math equation.
Right.
But that is not what happens for people caught in this quiet tax cycle.
It's really not.
Even when they have absolute market leverage, even when they have a wait list that's 6 months long, they still cannot bring themselves to raise the price.
They still hit backspace.
They still backspace.
Yep.
So the block isn't in the market. The block has to be internal.
That makes total sense. I mean, if it were just math, you wouldn't feel sick to your stomach when you adjust a spreadsheet.
Precisely. To really prove this, we need to look at the extremes.
Okay.
We need to look at what happens when the gap between what you charge and what you're worth closes completely, independent of whatever the market is doing.
Right, taking the market out of the equation.
Exactly. We need to examine someone who had absolutely zero market leverage, zero historical advantage, zero safety net, and yet flat out refused to undercharge.
Which brings us to an incredible historical example we have in our notes today.
Yes, I love this story.
It's amazing. This is a story that illustrates what it looks like to utterly defy those internal blocks and external pressures.
Completely defy them.
We're talking about a woman who had every historical, economic, and social reason to undercharge, to essentially price herself as that generic brand just to survive.
Right.
But she absolutely refused to do so. We're talking about the legendary Madam C.J. Walker.
Her life is the ultimate counterargument to this idea that our circumstances have to dictate our self-worth.
Or that the market gets the final say on our pricing.
Exactly.
Let me walk you through her background for those listening, because the context here is everything. You cannot understand the magnitude of her pricing strategy without understanding her starting line.
It's so crucial.
She was born Sarah Breedlove on December 23rd, 1867 in Delta, Louisiana.
1867. Think about that date.
Yeah. Her parents, Owen and Minerva, had been enslaved. Just let that sink in for a moment. She was born into the immediate chaotic aftermath of slavery in the American South.
All right.
Her early timeline is relentlessly harrowing. She was orphaned by the time she was 7 years old.
7.
Yeah, and then she married at 14.
And, that early marriage wasn't a romantic choice.
Yeah.
It was heavily driven by a need to escape an abusive brother-in-law. It was a survival tactic.
Exactly, a pure survival mechanism. And by the time she was 20, she was a widow with a young daughter.
When we talk about psychological baselines, it is really hard to imagine a more profound level of early hardship.
There's no safety net whatsoever.
Absolutely none. No financial stability, no physical safety, and just a constant suffocating proximity to deep trauma and loss.
Right.
From a purely neurological standpoint, an environment like that teaches a developing brain that the world is incredibly dangerous and that resources are virtually non-existent.
And the struggle doesn't just end there. In 1888, she moves up the Mississippi River to St. Louis.
Okay.
She works there as a laundress, and she does this for close to 18 years.
It's 18 years.
18 years of standing over boiling vats of water, doing incredibly backbreaking physical labor.
Wow.
And her earnings for this, roughly $1.50 a day.
$1.50.
This detail is so critical because it establishes her ground floor. $1.50 a day, absolutely no inheritance, very little formal education, and trying to build a life in a country that had, just a few years prior, legally classified her own family as property.
Exactly.
If anyone on earth had the right to feel that the market dictated a low, subservient value for her labor, it was her.
And that baseline is the crux of why her story is relevant to our modern pricing dilemmas today.
How so?
Because most people, if they manage to scrape together any sort of stability or business from that kind of starting point, they carry a deep, entrenched terror of losing it.
Right. They'd be terrified.
They hedged their bets. They played incredibly safe. The memory of having absolutely nothing is so powerful, so visceral, that they'll take whatever crumbs the market offers just to maintain a baseline of survival.
You'd expect her to price her later products as cheaply as possible just to guarantee sales, right? Just to make sure she didn't starve.
Exactly. You'd think she'd be the ultimate generic brand just trying to scrape by. But let's look at her actual trajectory.
Yeah, let's look at what she actually built.
Starting around 1906, she moves to Indianapolis and founds what eventually becomes the Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company. She's creating specialized hair care products for Black women. And she doesn't just create a small, local, modest business. She builds an empire.
A massive empire.
By 1917, she is training thousands of sales agents. These were women she called hair culturists across the United States and even expanding into Central America.
Which is just staggering for that time period.
It really is. But here is the operational detail that is truly extraordinary, especially considering my earlier point about hedging bets.
Okay, what is it?
She paid those agents well above the going rate for typical labor available to Black women at the time.
Which completely dismantles that supply and demand argument I was making earlier about generic cereal.
Totally dismantles it.
She could have paid them the absolute minimum. The market would have allowed it. The available jobs for Black women at that time were largely domestic work and sharecropping, which paid terribly.
Very terribly.
She could have offered just pennies above that, and she would have had a willing workforce. But she deliberately chose to pay a premium.
She did. And she didn't just quietly run her business behind the scenes either.
No.
No, she spoke publicly, frequently, and forcefully about the economic independence of Black women.
Wow.
She wasn't just participating in the market. She was actively reshaping the market and redefining the expectations of worth within it. She was creating a microeconomy where the baseline value of this labor was radically higher.
There's a speech she gave in 1912 at the National Negro Business League Convention that perfectly captures this mindset.
Oh, I know the one.
We have to deconstruct this because the phrasing is so deliberate. She stands up in front of this convention and says, let me read this. She says, I am a woman who came from the cotton fields of the South. I was promoted from there to the wash tub. Then I was promoted to the cook kitchen, and from there I promoted myself into the business of manufacturing hair goods and preparations. I have built my own factory on my own ground.
The linguistic choice there is just brilliant.
Isn't it?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of self-worth, think about that specific phrase. I promoted myself.
It takes complete, unadulterated ownership of her trajectory.
Yes.
She isn't waiting for the market to validate her, and she certainly isn't waiting for permission from a society that is actively hostile to her.
Right. What does it actually mean to build an enterprise from absolute destitution and not hedge your bets?
It means you're fearless.
It means entirely rejecting the narrative that the world tried to hand her. She is widely recognized today as America's first self-made female millionaire.
Which is incredible.
And as historians point out, specifically based on the rigorous biographical work of A'Lelia Bundles, she's verified as the first African-American female self-made millionaire.
She achieved all of this, amassed this incredible wealth and influence, and died in 1919 at the age of 51.
But what's fascinating here is that the core lesson isn't just about her accumulated wealth.
Right.
It's about her physiological posture toward that wealth and her own inherent value. Madam C.J. Walker didn't apologize for wanting more.
That seems to be the crucial dividing line, isn't it? The lack of apology, the lack of that internal wince when stating a price.
Exactly. Most people with beginnings, even a fraction as difficult as hers, carry the trauma of not having into every negotiation of their adult lives.
It just follows them everywhere.
Right. The early experience of deep scarcity teaches the nervous system that wanting more is inherently dangerous. It teaches you that you should keep your head down, be intensely grateful for whatever you manage to get, and never ever rock the boat.
Yeah.
But Walker's pricing structure, her payment of her agents, her public speeches, it was all a massive public refusal to let her traumatic origins set a ceiling on her worth.
Her pricing was her position.
Yes. She priced her goods and valued her own intellect as though the question of whether she deserved it had never once crossed her mind.
It's just an unshakable confidence to stand on that stage and say, I promoted myself, and to set your prices without a flinch, knowing where you came from.
It's powerful.
But we also have to acknowledge that Madam C.J. Walker is the exception.
Yes, she is.
She's a historical outlier. To understand the rule, to understand what actually happens to the vast majority of us when we're sitting at that keyboard staring at the backspace key, we have to look at a modern example.
We do.
We need to look at someone whose circumstances are much closer to our own today.
Yes. To understand the mechanics of the quiet tax in a contemporary setting, we need to look at Yasmin.
Let's talk about Yasmin.
She represents the hidden reality for a massive portion of the professional workforce who experienced early financial unpredictability.
So let's introduce Yasmin. She's a modern independent consultant, and it's important to establish her professional reality right now.
Right.
She is not struggling to find work. She's highly skilled, she's in heavy demand, and she is booked out for months in advance.
On paper, financially, she is entirely safe.
Completely safe. Yet, her rates sit drastically below what her clients would happily pay without a second thought, and they sit well below what her direct peers charge for the exact same caliber of work.
She has the exact market leverage we discussed earlier. Right. The supply of her available time is extremely low. The demand for her specific expertise is high. By every law of traditional economics, her prices should rise organically.
But they don't. And there's a really stark anecdote from the source material that captures exactly how this quiet tax operates.
Yeah, share that.
When Yasmin was going through this pricing framework, she was asked to name the rate she genuinely believed her work was actually worth.
Not what she thought she could get, but the actual value.
Exactly, the true value. She didn't have to go away and calculate it. She didn't struggle with a spreadsheet. She instantly gave a figure that was almost double her current working rate.
Double.
Double. She knew the number perfectly well, but she immediately followed that number by saying, "But I could never ask for that."
I could never ask for that.
Yeah.
That single sentence is the absolute crux of everything we were discussing today.
It really is.
I could never ask for that.
Well,
Why? What is preventing her?
right, why can't she?
To understand that, we have to peel back the layers of Yasmin's background. She didn't grow up in the extreme poverty of post-Civil War Louisiana, like Madam C.J. Walker.
No.
She grew up in a very typical, modern household where money was just tight and constantly unpredictable.
Yeah.
The phrase used to describe her childhood environment is not destitute, but watchful.
Watchful. That is such a specific, heavy, evocative word. It really paints a picture.
It does. It implies a constant humming, low-level vigilance. In a watchful household, a child picks up on everything.
They really do. Kids are sponges.
They hear the hushed, tense arguments at the kitchen table about the electric bill. They feel the anxiety radiating off their parents at the checkout line at the grocery store when the total gets too high.
Oh, man, yeah.
In that environment, Yasmin learned a very specific, deeply ingrained lesson early on. Wanting things out loud was expensive.
It caused stress.
It caused conflict. She learned that wanting less on the outside than she actually desired on the inside was the safest possible strategy. Because asking for things rarely ended well. It disrupted the fragile peace of the house.
It's like she's driving a high-performance Ferrari on a freshly paved highway, but she absolutely refuses to shift it out of second gear.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right, because 30 years ago, she learned how to drive on a bumpy, treacherous, pothole-filled dirt road where going fast meant you'd crash.
Exactly.
The road is perfectly smooth now, the car is incredibly capable, but she is still gripping the steering wheel, driving as if she's navigating hidden dangers that could wreck her life at any second.
That is a phenomenal analogy because it highlights the mismatch between her past programming and her present reality.
Yeah.
The context of the bumpy dirt road, the watchful, financially stressed household, no longer applies to her life. She is an established, respected, and financially secure adult.
But she's still driving in second gear.
She is setting her professional fees based on the muscular memory of the dirt road, rather than the objective facts of the smooth highway she's currently driving on. And we really need to focus on the true compound cost of this behavior.
Well, the financial cost is pretty glaring, right? I mean, if she knows her worth is double what she charges, she's leaving a massive amount of money on the table.
Yes. By her own calculations, she is leaving close to 50% of her potential lifetime earning capacity on the table, year after year after year.
That is insane.
Financially, that is a staggering loss. It affects her retirement, her investments, her overall quality of life. But here is the brilliant observation from the framework.
What's that?
The lost money is actually the secondary problem. The psychological cost is far more insidious and far more damaging over the span of a career.
Wait, how so? Surely losing half your income is the primary problem here.
You'd think so, but it's not, because of what the action represents to her brain.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Every single time Yasmin drafts that email, looks at her true rate, hits backspace, and sends an underpriced invoice, she isn't just losing money.
Right.
She is actively rehearsing a belief.
Rehearsing it.
Yes. She is neurologically reinforcing the old childhood conclusion that people like me do not get to ask for that much, or it is not safe for me to take up that much space.
Wow.
The act of undercharging isn't just a lingering symptom of her childhood belief. The behavior is the belief, rehearsed daily. It's kept alive and vibrant by the very action it produces.
So every sent invoice is a concrete confirmation to her brain that she is still on the dirt road.
Precisely.
Okay, that is profound. She is actively trapping herself in the past every single time she hits send. It's a self-fulfilling loop.
It really is.
Which leads me to what is literally the million-dollar question for someone in Yasmin's position.
Lay it on, eh?
She knows she is established. She knows she is safe now. She knows, on a purely logical level, that her clients would pay the higher rate without blinking an eye. So if her prefrontal cortex, her logical brain, knows all of this, why can't she just rationally change her prices?
That's the big question.
Why can't she just wake up on a Tuesday morning, look in the mirror, say, today I charged double, update her website, and actually follow through?
To answer that, we have to leave the realm of business strategy, leave economics behind entirely, and look deep inside the biological machinery of the human brain.
Oh, I love this.
We have to look at the hard neuroscience of scarcity.
I am so ready for this because this is where the research gets incredibly empirical. We aren't just talking about abstract psychological theories or mindset coaching anymore. We're talking about measurable biological science.
Exactly. The framework we're exploring grounds this entire phenomenon in some very significant peer-reviewed scientific research.
Okay, let's get into it.
The deep dive really begins with a landmark 2013 study published in the journal Science by a team of researchers, Manny, Mlanathan, Shafir, and Zhao.
So what were they looking for in this study, and what did they actually find?
Well, they were looking at the cognitive impact of poverty and financial strain.
Okay.
And what they demonstrated was revolutionary. They found that the mental strain of scarcity itself, just the persistent humming background feeling of not having enough, of being financially pressured, actually consumes raw cognitive capacity.
Wait, like it makes you less able to think?
Literally, yes.
Yes.
It eats up your working memory and your executive function. When the people in the study were preoccupied with financial pressure, their performance on basic reasoning tasks and fluid intelligence tests dropped substantially.
And the comparison the researchers used to illustrate this drop in cognitive performance is absolutely mind-blowing. They actually quantified it.
Yeah. What did they compare it to?
They said the cognitive drop caused by financial scarcity is comparable to losing a full night of sleep.
Wow.
I mean, think about how you function when you pull an all-nighter. You are in a fog.
Well, I'm useless.
Right. Your prefrontal cortex is basically offline. You make terrible reactive decisions. You can't plan for the future. You just want the immediate relief of a nap.
Exactly.
And the study is saying that just the stress of financial scarcity does that exact same thing to your brain's processing power constantly.
Precisely. It is a bandwidth tax. Scarcity doesn't just limit the contents of your wallet. It physically occupies the very mind that is trying to decide what to do about the scarcity.
That is so unfair.
It robs you of the cognitive bandwidth you need to solve complex problems, to strategize, or to advocate for yourself. It is running like a massive background app on your computer, draining the battery and slowing down the processor.
That's a perfect way to put it.
But the science goes even deeper than that. There's another piece of research we need to pull in, a 2014 review also published in Science by Haushofer and Fehr.
And this review looks at the behavioral loop that scarcity creates over time, right?
Yes, exactly. They reviewed a wide array of evidence and described a deeply tragic, self-reinforcing behavioral loop.
How does the loop work?
When you experience economic insecurity, it spikes your stress levels and negative emotions, basically. Your cortisol levels rise.
Okay, the stress hormone.
Right. That elevated stress physically changes how you make decisions. It pushes you away from logical long-term planning and toward risk-averse, shorter horizon decisions.
Meaning you stop playing the long game. You can't think about a 5-year career trajectory. You just try to survive until Friday.
Exactly. You make choices based on immediate survival, immediate relief, rather than long-term benefit.
Because your brain thinks you're under attack.
Yes. And the tragedy of the loop is that those very choices, the risk-averse, short-sighted ones like not asking for a raise or taking a high-interest payday loan or undercharging just to secure a quick gig, are the exact choices that tend to keep people trapped in poverty or financial insecurity over the long term.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, How does this specific biological mechanism impact a child like Yasmin growing up in that watchful house? I mean, she wasn't managing the household budget, but she was in the environment.
This is where the history and the biology fully intersect. If a fully developed adult brain loses massive cognitive capacity and shifts to short-term survival mode under scarcity, imagine what happens to a developing child's highly plastic nervous system.
It must just hardwire it in.
Completely. When a young nervous system is in an environment where money is tight, and it learns that asking for things causes stress, anger, or rejection from caregivers, it does not file that away as mere economic data.
Right. It doesn't say, I see our household budget is currently constrained due to macroeconomic factors.
No, a 7-year-old doesn't understand inflation or job markets.
Of course not.
The child's brain files it as a fundamental rule of survival. And the key player in this process is the amygdala,
The amygdala, the brain's primal threat detector.
the alarm bell.
Precisely. The amygdala's primary job is to keep you alive by recognizing patterns that previously caused pain or danger.
Okay.
In a watchful household, the amygdala learns to treat reaching for more or asking for what you want as a literal danger.
Because it caused conflict. Exactly. It's a risk that threatens your attachment to your caregivers, which, to a child, is a threat to life itself. It encodes a hardwired rule. If you ask for more, you will lose the little safety you currently have. Do not be a burden.
Oh, that breaks my heart.
Fast forward 3 decades. Yasmin is sitting in a beautiful, comfortable office. She has a waiting list of eager clients. She's completely objectively safe.
Yeah.
But when she moves her hand to type that higher number on the invoice, the amygdala fires.
It goes off like a fire alarm.
It doesn't see a modern business transaction. It recognizes the pattern of asking for more. It sees the threat to survival. It floods her system with stress hormones. As the framework puts it so perfectly, Yasmin was not making a pricing error. She was obeying a threat response encoded before she was old enough to even question it.
So, to synthesize this entire biological process, when I try to follow standard aggressive business advice,
Right.
when I pump myself up on a Monday morning with an extra shot of espresso and I say to the mirror, I am raising my rates.
We've all done it.
But by Wednesday, I am sweating, I am anxious, I feel like I am in literal physical danger, and by Friday, I have panicked, apologized, and lowered them back down. It's because I haven't changed the underlying survival rule.
Exactly.
I'm trying to fight my own amygdala with a motivational sticky note on my monitor that says, know your worth, and the sticky note is losing.
The sticky note will always inevitably lose to the amygdala.
It's no contact.
None. The amygdala is backed by millions of years of evolutionary survival hardware. Its entire purpose is to override your logical prefrontal cortex when it senses danger.
Right.
You cannot simply logic your way out of a physiological threat response.
Right.
You can't just think your way into feeling safe, which is exactly why the standard fix, just telling someone to change the number on the invoice, rarely ever holds long term.
Which leads us perfectly into the final and arguably most important section of our deep dive.
The solution.
How do we actually fix this? If I can't logic my way out of it, if I can't outsmart my amygdala, and I can't just force myself to type a different number without having a massive anxiety spike, how did Yasmin finally break her cycle?
Well, we know from the case study that she did eventually manage to raise her fees and hold them there.
She did. And the key to her breakthrough is that Yasmin realized she did not need a new pricing framework. She didn't need to read another book on negotiation, and she didn't need permission from the market.
No, none of that external stuff.
What she actually needed was for her original childhood conclusion to be updated at the specific physiological level where it was originally stored.
Her nervous system.
Yes. But how does one actually do that? Because rewiring your nervous system sounds incredibly difficult, borderline impossible without years of intense therapy.
It requires a specific approach. The fundamental truth about psychological change in this arena is this. Reasoning with a belief does not work if the belief was not born from reason in the first place.
That is a great point.
Yasmin's belief wasn't logical. It grew out of a deep, early, emotional, and physical experience of tension. Therefore, it only shifts when it is met at that exact same emotional and experiential level.
So you have to feel it to heal it, basically.
Pretty much. The work has to essentially go back to the moment the rule was written, acknowledge the fear, and provide a new experience of safety to override it.
And when Yasmin finally did that deep experiential work to shift this ingrained belief, the result wasn't just that her bank account got bigger. The case study is very specific about what the actual victory was.
Yes, the higher income was a fantastic byproduct, of course.
Obviously.
But the real victory, the profound life-altering shift, was that the new, much higher number stopped feeling like a risk.
Wow.
She was no longer gripping the steering wheel. She was no longer holding a premium price against the active resistance of her own nervous system.
The price and the person had finally arrived at the same figure.
I love that quote.
I absolutely love that phrasing. It means there is no more internal friction. It's just a neutral statement of fact, much like Madam C.J. Walker stating her prices.
Exactly.
Yasmin had finally achieved that state where asking for her true worth didn't require an apology, it didn't require a pep talk, and it didn't induce a cortisol spike. It just was.
It became her new normal.
So for you, listening to this right now, how do you actually apply this to your own life? We don't want to just leave you with the theory. Maria Fuentes' framework outlines a very specific methodology for tackling this rewiring process.
It does. And interestingly, it starts with a very specific concept about timing.
Timing.
Yeah. The framework proposes that late summer, specifically the month of August, offers a highly unique psychological window of opportunity for this kind of deep neural rewiring.
Why August? What makes August biologically or psychologically different from, say, making a grand New Year's resolution in January when everyone else is trying to change their lives?
Think about the rhythm of the year. January is fraught with pressure.
Oh, definitely.
But August, for many industries and cultures, is a season when the calendar clears just a little bit. The relentless, grinding pressure of the year eases just enough to allow your nervous system to downregulate.
You can finally catch your breath.
Right. You finally have enough cognitive bandwidth, going back to that science study we discussed, to actually look at the automated patterns you normally run straight past in your day-to-day hustle.
It's a natural pause.
But it's a critical pause because September is looming. And when September returns, it brings back the exact same patterns, the exact same frantic energy, the same pricing, the same softening apologetic clauses in your emails, and the exact same quiet tax, unless you deliberately set a new neural pathway down in between.
It's like you have this brief one-month window where the concrete of your habits is wet again, and you can change the shape before it sets hard for the busy autumn season.
That's a great way to visualize it.
To help people actually utilize this window, there is a specific structure mentioned in the research. It's called the 10-day rewire experience.
Let's look at the mechanics of that program, because it perfectly reflects the biological methodology we've been discussing.
Okay.
It is designed to run for 10 days, providing a structured platform with 8 distinct levels of work.
But the part that really stands out to me, the part that actually explains the how of rewiring the amygdala, is what they call the performance labs.
Right. This is where the actual neuroplasticity happens.
How does it work?
The performance labs aren't just theoretical journaling exercises or, passive reading. They are active spaces where you behaviorally rehearse the exact conversations your September will hold.
So you practice the precise moment of friction. You
Yes.
practice the moment of the backspace key. You practice out loud naming the higher figure and letting it hang in the air without rushing to fill the silence with an apology or a discount.
You are literally engaging in a form of exposure therapy.
That's exactly what it sounds like.
You are retraining the nervous system in a safe, controlled environment so that the amygdala learns, oh, I said the big number and I didn't die. I wasn't rejected. I am safe.
And if you do that enough times, the amygdala stops firing the alarm when you have the real conversation in September.
Precisely. Alongside this, the framework also points to a summer reset, which involves one-to-one practices with the singular, laser-focused goal of ensuring that just one specific behavior is genuinely different by the time autumn arrives.
And this is the crucial point. While these specific labs and workshops are the proposed structured solution, the overarching mechanism here transcends any single program you might buy.
Oh, absolutely. Whether you use these specific resources, whether you role-play with a trusted friend or work with a therapist, the fundamental takeaway remains the same.
If Yasmin's pattern feels familiar to you, if you recognize that physical sensation in your gut when you backspace over your true rate, the real work ahead of you has very little to do with conducting more market research.
None at all.
It has nothing to do with competitor analysis or tweaking your website copy or finding the perfect pricing matrix.
Exactly. The real work concerns the conclusion. A much younger, much more vulnerable version of you reached. about money, about safety, about conflict, and about what someone like you is allowed to ask for in this world.
It is incredibly profound. We have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
We have traveled from the harsh, undeniable reality of post-Civil War Louisiana with Madam C.J. Walker, a woman who defied every single historical and economic odd to price her worth without a shadow of an apology.
An absolute icon.
We have sat at a modern consultant's desk with Yasmin, witnessing how a childhood of watchful scarcity can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in an invisible quiet tax.
Such a huge cost.
And we've gone deep into the cellular biology of the amygdala's threat detection system to understand exactly why we do this to ourselves. We have learned definitively that undercharging is absolutely not a business strategy. It is a trauma response rehearsed and reinforced daily.
It is a complete paradigm shift in how we view our professional value. But to truly synthesize all of this, we have to bring it back to your everyday reality right now for the person listening.
Yes, let's do that.
Today, we look closely at how your childhood nervous system sets your financial prices. But this raises a much larger, more important question for you to explore on your own long after you've finished listening to this deep dive.
What's the question?
Beyond your invoices, beyond your salary negotiations, where else in your life are you currently paying a quiet tax?
Oh, wow.
What other boundaries, what personal relationships, or what creative ambitions are being strictly limited today by a survival rule that your brain wrote decades ago?
That is the question to sit with. Are you keeping the price of your time, your emotional energy, and your heart artificially low just to avoid tripping an old, outdated alarm?
It's worth thinking about.
It really is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We encourage you to step fully into your worth, not just on a spreadsheet, not just on an invoice, but deep within your own nervous system. Until next time, don't hit backspace on your value.